Hi, it's Friday at 10, more or less. And it's time for another session of relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. And this week, oddly enough, there has been painting, which has been kind of unusual as I've been working on the Apollo model, which requires very little painting, but an awful lot of sanding and filing. So we should have renamed it, at least for this. Since I finished the submarine and started working on the Apollo, we should have called it like not very relaxing sanding and filing with Dice and Dungeons. But this week has been painting, so that's been pretty exciting. And hi ever after. Thank you for the lurk. These guys here are going to show up in our Dungeons and Dragons show somehow, sometime. The DM doesn't give things away, ahead of time, so that we don't have a scripted show. We have a DM who thinks she knows what she wants us to do, and then pretty much we don't do that. We do something else. But it's always very entertaining. Anyway, these guys are going to show up on the show, so if you want to see them again after they're finished, you should watch our Dungeons and Dragons show, which streams on Twitch with a live chat 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, and in a couple of months, 2 months maybe, a month and a half, it will be Eastern Standard Time again, I guess. I'm not quite sure what they're going to do. They're all carrying these batons, which are weapons we haven't seen before. And anyway, yeah, we're going to find out as players and you as watchers or listeners what exactly these guys are and who they are and what they're doing. But I'm preparing them here for the show. There isn't much left to do, but I need to finish it today because I'll be gone next week doing the travel again. I think that's the last one I've got planned, maybe a short one. I don't know. Been away a lot this year. But anyway, I'll be gone next week, so I need to finish them. Today, there fortunately is not too much to do. I need to paint their beards, and they need to be base coated and then washed. And then the shield, this is the prototype, has this like silver highlighting on the raised parts. So you can see this one's done and this one isn't, right? So the ones that aren't done will end up having silver put on all the raised parts. I'm going to base coat the beards first so that the paint can dry while I'm painting the shields, and then when the base coat is dried, then I'll be putting a wash of some sort on the beards. I made a decision, and I don't know if it's going to be a good one or not, that there's 10 of them, that each one will have a different colored beard. So I picked out some colors. There's 10 colors there. And each one's going to have a different colored beard. And then I'll see what the base coat looks like and decide which of the washes that I have. There's 3 shades of gray. There's 3 shades of brown. Blue gray. I didn't want that one. Anyway, yeah, I don't have the one I wanted. Here somewhere. Huh. No. Blue gray might be kind of interesting. I might try that anyway. Gray. There's one that's just plain gray. It's a really light wash that I've used on the Apollo model. To create dirt on the pants of the astronaut suit. But now I don't have it, so I might not use it because I don't have it. I can't find it. Why do these things happen? You're going to just poke around here. There it is. I've got it with the metallic colors, and they're in the same size bottle. So, okay. Anyway, I'm just going to start like with one color and paint a beard, and then move on to another color and another beard, and so on. This is sort of detailed work, and as you know by now, I can't see close up with these glasses because they're actually made for driving. So most of the lens is for distance, and then there's a little spot on the bottom to focus on the dashboard, which is a little distance away, but this is up close work. So I'm going to be wearing these head magnifiers. Oh, and I hope the battery lasts. We'll see. The battery just doesn't affect the magnification, but it powers this little light, and that little light is really handy to have in this makeshift, not studio, my highly sophisticated piece of cardboard work surface here. Yeah, there's just a whole lot of shades of tan, and then there's like a red and an orange. So I don't know. These beards aren't going to be all fancy, but they'll be there. So I'm going to just pick a color. Here, there's a color. This will be the first color to go on the first beard. Why? Because it's the one I picked. So some of these are kind of light. They're almost white. Some of them are light brown. But even if they were like the same shade of brown, for example, I could either put a dark gray wash on it, or I could put a brown wash on it, and they'd look really quite different. I don't know what colors of wash I want to put on. I'll decide when I see what these things look like. I'm going to be doing a lot of paint stirring. These beards take very little paint. But if I'm doing, just a couple of drops of each of the 10 colors, I'll be spending probably more time stirring the paint, mixing it, than I am going to actually be painting. I don't know. Find out. So now I'm going to disappear behind my head magnifiers here. And here's one. You are about to get a very light beige beard. Beards are kind of braided down the side here. No, this is probably going to take a long time to paint these beards because detail, little brush. The paint that I need. I said I need like a drop. I've got 20 drops. A little paint wastage there. But now you can see the beard anyway. This will probably get some sort of a brown wash. But then when it comes time to actually do it, it might not be. No. Each one of these beards also has like a little ring around it here. And on the prototype that was painted the same color as the armor. So I don't know. I'll probably just keep that going that way. Yeah, there's a little bit of an issue here with the nose. There's a gas mask here. I got some paint up onto it. Probably won't hurt anything. Okay, so there, these are dwarves. So they got pretty big beards. So there's a big beard. We need to do something about that nose, though. I messed it up. Quick fix. I'm just putting a dot of this dark metallic on it, and it should make it disappear. Yeah, that'll do. Because it didn't splash all over the place. Okay, that's one. It's another color. Be a little in there, and I'm not hearing it. Let's see if I can squeeze out much less paint this time. Yeah, there's much less paint than last time. It'll still be way more than I need. There. Big bushy beard. So there's a lot of texture in these beards in the print, because they're supposed to be hair, right? So I'm hoping that the wash will bring out that texture. I mean, as it is with the base coat, they don't look particularly great. And I'll do the shields. And then after that, put washes on the beards to make them look, hairier. And then I'll have to decide. I think the band on the beard, it's like a rubber band on it, like right there. Band. It's probably like I don't know, a piece of cloth or maybe even a metal ring. Who knows? Who knows what it's supposed to be? I don't. But I'll probably just take some dark metallic color. Maybe I'll use like gunmetal or something. I'm tempted to paint them a bright color, but that's not how the prototype was done, so that's not how it's going to be. So there's beard number 2. See, different base color. 2 down, 8 to go. This is nice. This is a gray color. It'll be different. I had a nice rant going, monologue. I had a wonderful monologue going Wednesday about Tom Terrific, which led into a discussion of groceries and how grocery stores used to be, with a little bit of a tangent over to the Dobie Gillis show. I don't think I want to talk about Dobie Gillis anymore. Dobie Gillis is really pretty boring. So I'll talk about it just enough to explain why it's really kind of boring. It's kind of boring because every show was really pretty much the same. It was Dobie trying to go after some woman, get her attention and affection, and usually failing. And then there were, side characters like Chadsworth Osborne Jr. and Zelda and Maynard Krebs, and they always made an appearance. Well, you probably didn't hear that because the microphone filtered it out, but since this isn't like a painting studio. This is a basement workshop. And my painting stream borrows, I don't know, like 3 square feet of the top of the workbench. But it's a basement workroom. So there were some things on the pegboard there. And one of them just fell. Hope it didn't break. Anyway, there was a clatter. It caught my attention there for a moment because it fell and clattered. So during my break, probably I'll go over there and find out it's a set of levels. Okay. They're kind of cool levels. Two of them are to be used on strings. They're string levels. And the way those work is you tie a string to the tops of 2 things, and then you hang this level on the string, and it lets you create a level line over a long distance, longer than you can with just a regular level. Most levels are like, I don't know, anywhere from 1 to 3 feet. Sometimes you can get really long ones, like 8-foot long levels, that kind of thing. Specialty work, but anyway, that's what the string level does. The other one is for use on a post. It actually has 3 levels on it, so you can level the post in all 3 dimensions. Like if you stick a post in the ground for a fence and you want it to not be tilting, it has 3 levels on it, so you don't have to like measure one and then measure another and hope that the first one didn't move. You get them all leveled at once. So I don't see any. They're made out of plastic. I'm looking at it, and there isn't any shattered plastic laying around. So the real question would be whether those, with the little bubbles, little glass vials that hold the bubble level, whether those are okay or not. This is supposed to be some sort of yellow. Hopefully it will be. Anyway, we'll see. If two of these base colors end up being too similar to each other, I'll just use a different kind of wash on them. That will make them different. Yeah, this one's a little challenging because the beard is behind the shield. Nice. Mustardy color. I have a color chart that I probably could have used to see what these colors will all look like, but I didn't feel like messing with that, so I didn't. So I just picked some out that looked, based on my use before, or if I hadn't used the color before, the way it looks in the bottle. I can pretty much say that if I had a beard, it wouldn't be this color. So I'm talking about Dobie Gillis to explain why I'm not talking about Dobie Gillis. That's kind of a typical thing, isn't it? Let me not say this thing I'm about to say. Okay, well, there's another one. I was going to use this color, but it's going to look too much like some of the others. I'm going to grab a really bright yellow. Why? I don't know. It might look okay. It might turn out okay. This is deep yellow. Deep yellow should be pretty good. I'll try that in a bit. Here's a red one. We'll do a red one. I think the red would look good with like a brown wash on it. I don't know. I don't know if any of these are going to look good. Are these too close together? Yeah. I'll put a different color wash on. I'll do one brown and one gray. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I'm thinking some of these base colors are really going to look similar, so I'll have to use the wash to differentiate them. Or I could just pick different colors, I guess. But why? So this is very red. But I have this stuff called smoky ink, which is kind of brownish red. I think it would look good on this. Later on, it comes time to do that. And after the wash is on, it will be what it will be. I'm not going to mess around with it anymore. So they'll either look pretty good, they won't. Just sort of dabbing the paint on here, as you can see, because there's just a lot of deep texture in the beard. It's supposed to look like hair. And the side ones are braided, so I'm using a little brush and sort of dabbing it into all of the nooks and crannies. The beards are, when I was doing the rest of the colors, I didn't have to be terribly careful about the beards because, as you see, they're getting painted. So much of the beard at this point is painted the same as the armor with the brown undercoat and the kind of silvery overcoat. But this makes them look different because I'm putting paint on top of paint and it's changing it. That's what happens. The only downside of doing this, and it's not happening here, because of the nature of the paint that's being used, is that sometimes the solvent in a paint will dissolve the undercoat. That's happened to me in the past. That's always not a good thing. Is when, painting over primer is usually pretty safe, but sometimes painting over, in this case, brown, silver, and a wash, especially with the washes, there's always the possibility that that the paint will dissolve the paint underneath, and then it just makes a muddled mess. In this case, it's not happening, and even if it did, they're just beards, and then they'd be a unique color. I guess I could say they'd just be a unique color. This is number 6. Whoa, okay, that's just, it decided to jump out of the bottle, not just ooze out. And I'm painting things that are supposed to be white. You may have found, at least like on these minifigs and other models, that the white got paint that's called white and another one called dead white. Doesn't really look, I mean, it doesn't look as good as this, which is ivory, which has a little bit of brown, maybe a touch of yellow in it. So that's what I'm using on this one. It's going to look very light. This beard, most of the others, the point of the beard is detached from the model, but this one's right up against it, which made it a little bit more challenging to paint. As I'm doing these, I'm noticing that the band, which I'm overpainting here now, and that'll get painted another color, is a pretty distinct feature. And again, I'm wondering, yeah, I guess I have to stick to the prototype that Nikki did, which is to have that band that's holding the beard down here painted a metallic color. I might just use dark aluminium, the same color as the armor. It's already out, so it's easy to find. Although I could paint them azure, the same color as the shield. That's kind of apparently their color. I don't know, if I have an opportunity, I might ask which would be better. But I wouldn't really have an opportunity until time for break, and I don't know if it's going to take that long to get these beards done and the shields. We'll see. Used up half hour. This is an unusual painting stream in that I oftentimes go like at least 15, sometimes 20, sometimes 30 minutes without actually starting to do things. But I'm feeling a little bit of time pressure to get these done. And when they're done, it might be before 2 o'clock. I'll need to decide what to do. I think if I finish these, pretty early, relatively speaking, um, anyway, if I finish these relatively early, there's just a flaw that I saw in one of the other things that probably won't make any difference. There's some things I need to do on the Apollo that I might just go ahead and try to get done. It's just little bits of gold foil on the landing pads. So I'm putting this on. Yes, in fact, this is pink. This one is getting a pink base coat on the beard. This is for who should be lurking on the chat, but probably isn't yet. Probably doing something dumb like working at his job. But there had to be one pink one. So this is it. Probably put a brown wash on this too. Then it'll be, pinkish, but not vibrantly pink like it is now. Painting these, I'm noticing that when I painted the rings that are holding the beard together, I'm going to have to be pretty careful, because if I put a base coat and a wash on and then slop paint on them, it's going to be very hard to fix that. If it's just a plain color, and paint gets over it, then it's easy to just repaint it with the same color. But when it's washed, it's hard to match it. These rings should be pretty easy to paint, but sometimes the easy things just results in a little bit of carelessness or something. That'll happen, and as a result, it gets messed up. So I'm just telling myself now that this is a thing that could get messed up. Don't mess it up. I don't want oh moments today. I'm not in the mood for oh-ohs. There. We should actually move this army down here. Then they'll be kind of on camera. And I think you can, it's like straight down on them, but you might still be able to see the beard colors. There's a variety now of beard colors. Okay, the next 3 colors. 2 are pretty distinctive, and 1 is just like everything else. I think this is the same as the base. Yeah, it's distinct enough. It's going to fall in this kind of orangey, beigey kind of color look. So while I'm not talking about Dobie Gillis, and I've also not been talking about Tom Terrific, and I know it didn't reach a conclusion on Wednesday about whether Tom Terrific boasts in his theme song about being the greatest hero ever. Could possibly be true or not. And a lot of that would depend on what one considers to be heroic. And I'm of the opinion that no matter how much I really enjoyed Tom Terrific, what he did was not really heroic. Because of his shape-shifting abilities, he never really put himself in any sort of danger. You know, he might have been, very helpful. He might have saved somebody, but just, saving someone, I don't think in and of itself necessarily makes you a hero. I guess by some definitions, that is in and of itself a heroic act, even though you didn't put yourself in any danger or even necessarily exert yourself like Tom Terrific, unless his shape-shifting ability, demanded huge amounts of energy. But I never saw that in the cartoon. It was just like he just changed. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to express the opinion that Tom Terrific, despite his claim in his theme song, was not in fact the greatest hero ever. And may, in fact, not actually have been a hero, but was an entertaining cartoon. And it didn't have really dumb, false, forced rhymes in his theme song. Which was important, because sometimes, those kinds of songs could just have really badly forced rhymes. Or in the case of Mr. Ed's theme song, the rhyme was simply repetition for the most part. Just basically consisted of saying course over and over and over again. But that didn't happen in Tom Terrific's theme song. So he might not have been the greatest hero ever, but he had one of the best theme songs for a cartoon. Flintstone theme song, I don't think was too bad. The Yogi Bear theme song was not all that great. Gilligan's Island, yeah, Gilligan's Island was okay. Theme songs, just like Gilligan's Island consisted pretty much of just introducing the characters. That was the Jetsons theme song was the same sort of thing. It was just naming the characters. Those kinds of theme songs aren't really compelling. I think they'd ever win a Grammy. I think the saddest case of rhyming, though, was what's the song "Feeling Groovy"? I don't know if that's the title of it or not, but that was kind of the refrain. I don't know if they did this intentionally or if everybody just got tired in the studio or whatever, but the rhyme in one of the stanzas was really lame. It was, "Hello, lamppost, what you knowin'?" It's a lamppost, doesn't know anything. "How do you keep your flowers growing?" Again, I mean, okay, it's rhymed, knowing and growing, so there's a rhyme there. Okay, I'll give them that, but it's not a very good rhyme, and it is kind of nonsensical when you really kind of think about it, because you know lampposts don't know things, and if there's flowers at the base of the lamppost, it's not the lamppost that's keeping. So that's not. I mean, like right off, that's not the greatest lyrics ever. But that the songwriters at that point were getting desperate because they say, "Have you got some rhymes for me?" or something similar to that. So that's the first sign of desperation. You're asking a lamppost for a rhyme. But then the next phrase is do 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 do. Have you got some rhymes for me? Do 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 do. Well, obviously the answer was no. The lamppost did not have any rhymes for you. You were relegated to going do 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 do, feeling groovy. So that was, to me, that was just a sign of either really lazy or desperate songwriting. I'm not sure which. Well, this yellow color really sucks. It's just not covering at all. It might not be stirred up enough. Maybe it hasn't been used. So the pigment, it looks yellow here in the little thing, but it's not. But it's almost transparent. So I can get it to work better. That that beard, yeah, right near the end, right? Everything's been going okay. All the beards are, looking beardy. And then this bright yellow color just turned into nothing. There's just no pigment there. It's almost like a wash. I hope this orange is better. Sometimes the oranges aren't very good either. Yellows, oranges, things in that category are sometimes just not good. I mean, they don't cover. I've had one where I needed to put 3 coats on. Well, if this is going to be any better or not. Can't be any worse. That's true. Okay, I'm just going to put this on. And then I'm going to come back and do a second coat. Pretty disappointing. Yeah, and pretty annoying. Getting right near the end of beardness here. Is running into this kind of situation with a paint that doesn't cover. So I'm humping a little bit. I'm annoyed by the yellow. I'm probably going to be annoyed by the orange too. So these guys, of course, they're at the end, right? If I'd done them first, then they would be dry by now. And I could put the second coat on and not lose a lot of time. But no, as it is, I managed to pick a color that doesn't cover right at the end. May or may not dry in the second coat time. I don't know. Well, that was good. My annoyance almost led to me. I bumped the shaft of the baton. So far, I have managed to not break any of them. Having said that, I've now, admitted the possibility of doing that. I've got this little vibrator thing, 4E's something or other, and it vibrates the bottles, and it's supposed to stir the paint in a way that's way better than just shaking it. And you can't hear it because it's filtered out. Yeah, no sound at all. So there's a microphone in the camera, it looks like. I don't know if that probably doesn't get into the stream. I'm going to guess that this orange is going to cover just as poorly as the yellow did. Let's see. Yeah, I guessed pretty well. Of course, the two colors that I saved that I'm putting on last are the ones that are going to require like a second coat. Or maybe not. I don't know. They're going to get washed anyway. So maybe it'll be okay. I'm not really sure. As a base coat, it looks really scabby. But as something that will get washed over, it might not be. But I'll probably give them a second coat anyway, just in an effort to this guy doesn't have a little braided beard on the other side. A little bit of hint. Okay, well, let those set for a bit. I'm going to start painting the shield silver. And at some point, I'll need to either wash the brush or squeeze out more paint. And that's when I'll come back and do the second coat on those last two, which were unfortunately the last two instead of the first two. What a pain in the butt. Chainmail silver, this color, is now going to be going on the shields. Hopefully I won't mess these up. If I do, I'll paint blue over them. Now, just painting the raised surface on the front. Really helps to have the head magnifiers on to do this. There are some places where I got blue because I wasn't careful on the edges of the shield. In those cases, I'm going, if I might have to put some silver on that, and then put some wash over that to tone it down. I'm just saying ahead of time that there might be some shield touching up in ways and places. Poof. If I'm already becoming incoherent, and it's only been less than an hour into this. See how it goes. I just have to shut up so that words. That's coming along okay. I think it's on camera. I probably should put the camera down lower. Hi, Who. I will do a flip as soon as I'm done with this shield. Oh. Here, look. Just for you. I managed to get some on the blue. Nicely done. Actually had to work at that. So there'd be a little blue touch up on that. I really had to dip the brush down and make a mess of that in order to do that. And it's just enough so you can see it. It shows, right? It shows as an obvious flaw. So, oops. It does seem pretty good at doing an oops, even a little one like that. But because it's like the shiny paint, it just shows it's an obvious flaw. I need to wait for that to dry a little bit. Come back and do touch up on the shields. This one needs a touching up. Okay, this one done. That's how it looks when it's silvered. Flip. Here we go. Flip, flip, flip. Paint. I'll do the paint or no paint flip. Make sure I bounce them into these guys. It's important to do that. Yep, it's on the floor. There you go. There's the flips. Thanks for joining in, Who. Painting a raised surface like this, what I tend to do is I keep the brush horizontal to the surface That's what seems to work for me. Like that one oops that I did. Okay, this one's a little more challenging because the raised surface isn't raised. Okay, did a freehand line there. It was raised on one side but not the other. So I keep the brush kind of horizontal, and that supposedly will keep the paint on the raised surface and not on the surface below it. Unless I do an oops, in which case it's just messed up. Let me just explain something to everybody. I do not do social media. Okay. If anybody looks on social media and, I don't have Facebook, I don't have X, I don't have TikTok, I don't have any kind of social media presence, and I don't look at it either. And so I have come to understand that some people who watch this on YouTube have, raised some questions and things that I'm not ignoring any more than I ignore everything. But I've been told that there are some, and they were forwarded to me. So I apologize if I seem non-responsive. It's just that I just don't do that, and just have never really had an interest in it. So I guess that's sort of an excuse or sort of an explanation of why. If there's some communication going on one of our social media channels, I hope somebody else among the Dice and Dungeons crew is attending to them and responding. But that's my explanation. I just don't have a presence on social media, and so I'm not responding because I'm not there. I guess that's part of just being old. Is just not doing that sort of thing. Although I come to understand that some people who are old like me, manage to get onto Facebook and spend time doing that, but I never did. So like I'll email or talk to people on the phone or something, but don't do the social media thing. Anyway, that's an explanation and an excuse. So cartoon theme songs, TV show theme songs, or back in the 50s and 60s, everything had a theme song. And if it wasn't a song, it was at least theme music. Like the Andy Griffith Show, Mayberry, RFD. I think it had different names at different times. Didn't have a song, it just had whistling. But there was theme music to it. There's 60 Minutes is a sort of quasi-news show. Long feature news things. It didn't have a theme song, but it had a clock ticking. So I used to joke that was a very distinctive theme song. Tick, 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 tick. A stopwatch ticking, counting off the minutes because, it was 60 minutes. It's gumming up. I did say that when the brush gummed up and I was going to clean it, that I'll go back and put the second coat of yellow and orange on these beards. So having said that, I'm just going to go do that. So here I am. I'm painting yellow. Yeah, it covers much better the second time. Part of it is that some of the solvent has evaporated from the paint in the well here, a little pellet thing. And part of it is just that there's 2 layers of color now. Those shields are taking long enough that I probably will be able to ask on break whether to make the bands on these beards metal color or blue color. I was afraid I'd be done with these. Not afraid. I wasn't afraid of that. There was a chance, I thought, that I could actually be done with these things like before break, but that's just not a thing. That's not a thing that's going to happen. Everything I do takes longer than I think it will. At this point, I know that it's going to take longer than it probably should. If someone were good at this. Well, now the yellow and the orange are a little bit more yellow and orange than they were before. Yeah, so I've been rambling on about theme songs and rhymes and stuff like that. So that's something to talk about. Silver paint is starting to gum up. Starting to dry in the well. Problem yet, but at some point, it's always a compromise kind of thing. Is squeezing enough paint out to get a fair amount of painting done, but then it sits in the well there and it starts to dry, or the solvent evaporates at least, so it starts to get thick. In this particular case, that's not a real problem because the surfaces are so small they're not going to show a brush mark anyway. And it's still spreading and covering, so that's not an issue. Sometimes that becomes a problem, though, if there's like larger surfaces to cover or if it takes longer. But it's, one can squeeze out less paint, but then it has, more surface area so that it evaporates and dries out even more quickly. It becomes unusable, thereby wasting paint, or one can squeeze out a lot and then have too much and sometimes run into the same problem. So the issue here isn't so much on the surface, it's on the brush. As the paint thickens, it comes up on the tip of the brush. Yeah, stick your finger. It's always important at some point to stick one's thumb or finger into the painted surface. It's even more important to not notice and then stick that same paint covered finger on a surface that's painted a different color, so that all of a sudden now, like in this case, I would have a silver splotch somewhere, a silver thumbprint. I think I've avoided that, but that has happened. How did paint get on that finger? It wasn't anywhere near the paint. And then how did that paint get on this painted surface when I don't remember even touching it with the paint, the finger that had paint on it that shouldn't have had paint to begin with? Miracles of relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons is the spontaneous appearance of paint on appendages that aren't anywhere near the paint, and then spreading of that to surfaces where it shouldn't be. Kind of a recurring feature. I wouldn't say that it's like a standard thing. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens with enough frequency that it's kind of like a running gag on an old comedy show. Oh yeah. During that quiet interlude where I wasn't rambling on about something, used to be, it's one of those used to be that there was music playing and you would have heard some really good Nakarada music instead of silence. But we don't have that up and running yet. I'm going to take a chance and annoy DM, who will be annoyed. Okay. I'm going to take a chance and annoy our DM and ask that the music come back. There was some, I think it's a YouTube issue. I'm not sure. Where we have a license to use the Nakarada music in our streams, but other people use it too. And apparently there was a situation where there was a false claim made of ownership or something like that. I'm not familiar with all of the details of how that works, but we were in danger of having stream not streamed because of the music, because of this dispute that I believe has been resolved, which should allow the music to come back. But I think like the play stream needs to be modified. Software needs to be updated. There's a bunch of stuff that has to be done that fortunately I don't have to do. but unfortunately hasn't been done, which means that the music isn't playing, so that when I'm not talking, uh, there's there's nothing, there isn't any sound. Putting on a huge amount of pressure to keep rambling on about something nonsensical and inconsequential. I guess fortunately or unfortunately, I still do remember some things about 1950s and 60s television and maybe even movies. Uh, you know, talk about those. Or just events. Like when I was, some of the early work on the Apollo program, the Apollo model, duh. I, I've been doing pretty well, but I somehow managed to get a little spot of paint there on the blue at the angle of the brush wrong. Anyway, I was able to, because I was working on an Apollo model and still am when I get back, maybe even today, depending on how quickly this goes, although at the rate this is going, probably not. This is taking a fair amount of time. I got to talk about the space program because that all happened as I was growing up. Space race was a real thing. We were all being patriotic and cheering us on and feeling very scared and sad when the Soviets, got the first satellite into orbit and killed the first dog in orbit. Poor Laika. Um, got the first human into space. Not only that, but the first human in space completed like 3 orbits or several orbits. And it took us the better part of a year just to get somebody into like a suborbital up and down kind of thing. Before we were able to replicate the human orbiting the Earth and returning safely kind of thing that the Soviets did. So, it was like an incredibly expensive sports event. It really was. Like, there wasn't any, I mean, other than winning, there really wasn't any other thing gained from somebody going up orbiting in a capsule. We all heard about the, really important scientific knowledge that would be gained and whether humans could survive in space and all of that. But, as it turned out, and even at the time, even though we got all excited about space flight because, going to the moon and Mars and other things, and growing up, we weren't sitting around talking about or thinking about and how much radiation can a human stand and providing adequate shielding against all the radiation in space created an incredibly heavy spacecraft, and we didn't have, the rocket power to get that shielding up there. And being in maybe 4th or 5th grade or something at the time when the Mercury program was going on. Anyway, yeah. I mean, it was an exciting, kind of scary time. Well, yeah, I mean, it was because it wasn't just a space race. It was, are we going to have nuclear arms in space? Are they going to beat us? Like I said, it was almost like a sports game. Getting beat, winning or losing was the thing, not whether it meant anything. It's like a baseball or football game in and of itself is kind of meaningless, but it's whether your team wins or not. So the space race actually really was like that. On the other hand, I mean, it was marvels of engineering, the things that were done, the that we apparently have a difficult time replicating today. You know, making pressure suits that protected someone while they were otherwise unprotected in the vacuum of space. Saturn V was an amazing thing. All done, I think, without really exaggerating, with slide rules, because of very limited calculating computing power at the time. Slide rule is, right? People even know what they are anymore, other than maybe an object that you'd see in certain museums. So looking back at it, practically, in terms of national security or whatever, the space race was it was just really expensive and pointless for both sides. But it did result in, accomplishing some pretty cool stuff. In terms of lack of computing power, materials at the time. I mean, stuff that we routinely use now were incredibly difficult to get and exotic. I think even things like titanium, now they make watch cases and stuff out of it, whatever. And there was a time when that was an exotic metal that was incredibly hard to come by and very difficult to work, and was only used in highly specialized military applications. Yeah. And it really is. It's hard to imagine now. I mean, it's hard to even imagine the minuscule computing power that existed back then. People say, you kind of think that it's like an exaggeration or a joke that the smartphone that you're carrying around has way more computing power than the superest supercomputer back in the 50s, but it's really true. The very first computer that I worked with, and it wasn't a very sophisticated computer, it was actually like a bespoke. The guy down the hall made them. Okay, I was in graduate school, and the guy down the hall built these things, and they were designed to control experiments, like, record data. Well, that doesn't, record data. What does that mean? It means that there were inputs into this computer and outputs that sent a signal to a device like a camera shutter or just a shutter to control how long the shutter was open. So, a signal would be sent from the computer at a certain time to open the shutter, and then within milliseconds, close the shutter. Okay, it was that kind of thing. Or to measure reaction time, like a shutter would open and the computer would note that it was opened, and it would start a clock, an internal clock. And then if someone pushed a button, that button would return a signal to the computer. These were pretty simple things, right? But at the time, this was pretty sophisticated. And we'd be pushed a button, would return a signal to the computer, which would then basically stop the stopwatch and record the reaction time, the time between the time it opened the shutter and the time the button push came back. So the program that ran this had to be fairly sophisticated in that it had to signal the opening of the shutter, start the clock, receive a signal, stop the watch, and record the time. And it had to do this. It was all done in machine language. Okay. I mean, it did not have a programming language. It just had a set of machine language codes. And it had a program that did all of this. Okay, and it had to, machine language, and it wasn't like variable addressing kind of thing or relative addressing. It was, you had to specify exactly which, chunk of memory, which address, the reaction time needed to be recorded in. There weren't any shortcuts anywhere along the way. So all the addressing had to be explicitly defined. But the thing that was most impressive, or least impressive, I guess, depending on how you might view this, is that it had half a K of memory. If you look at computers nowadays, I don't know if you even know what that means. Okay? It's like we all think about like gigabytes and terabytes now. Those were words that had no meaning back then. We didn't even talk in terms of kilobytes because this machine didn't have one. It had half a kilobyte of memory. And not memory like it is now, okay? Like memory separate from the place where you store your programs and everything else. No, this was like, that's all it had. It had half a K of memory, and that half a K had to do everything. well, I'm exaggerating a little bit. It was like a half a K words of memory, not bits. So I'm cheating a little bit. They were 516 words of memory. So one machine language instruction took one word. One reaction time, okay, one number from the clock took a word. One instruction to open a shutter, or one instruction to listen for, like a Dulu, to listen for the pushing of the reaction time button, okay, took a word. So there wasn't much storage in this thing. So it was necessary to, if every reaction time data point required one of the words of memory, which were also required to hold the program that controlled the experiment, it was important to get the data out of the computer. And we're not talking to a floppy disk or anything like that. Those had just barely become available, other than in computer science departments, highly specialized computer science departments. So we recorded on cassette tape. And that took words of memory too, right? Because in order to instruct the computer to read one of its words of memory and send a copy of whatever was in that word to the cassette tape took several instructions. So that was cool. I got to be really good at machine language programming to get these machines to do things when it had such a limited capability. But then, I was really good at that kind of programming, but as and started doing like Fortran and other things, and eventually control of the computer disappeared with things like Windows and whatever, and then it just wasn't interesting anymore. It was interesting to be able to control like every bit, almost literally every bit, but every word, every address, every location, every action that the computer did. It was kind of an interesting thing. Because of the very limited storage, the one thing I was most proud of, actually I was very proud of this, was characters were ASCII characters, right? 8 bits. And some of those bits were redundant, like every usable, not every character, but every usable character, like numbers and letters. 2 of those bits were kind of redundant. And another one was, if I recall, kind of calculated, in that its value was dependent upon the value of some others. So it could be calculated. If it wasn't there, you could calculate it from some of the other bits. So I was able to write a program, a very short program. I think it was like maybe 10 or 12 words long, instructions long, that took ASCII characters and compressed them so that 3 characters could reside in each word of memory. And then I could recall them and decode them again and put them out as ASCII characters. It meant that the computer then could store 3 times as much information as it would ordinarily have. I got a little bit of blue paint here. A couple of these just require a little bit of blue touch-up. So I'm going to go around and find those and get the little silver out. There are only like 2 or 3 like that. Hopefully I'll be able to find them again. I found that one. Anyway, those were the glory days of working with computers, when everything had to be done like one instruction at a time. I really kind of enjoyed that. But then that all ended, and then more sophisticated computers came along. I do remember that the department I was in got, mini computer. It wasn't a mainframe. That was reserved for the mainframe, the entire building, in which computer science students ran their programs overnight because it was being used by other people who had much higher priority than the students. But we got our own, what was it, a PDP-11 or something? Really cool thing about it is that it came with a hard drive. And people who are older might remember that the first hard drives, were not 5.25-inch floppy disks, or no, they were the size of a 33 1/3 RPM LP record and about an inch thick. And they came in a plastic container handle on it. And the handle went down and rotated and caught the bottom of the disc. It was a plastic bottom. You picked it up and stored it that way. And when you wanted to use it, you'd bring it back and put it into the reader and open it up and take it off. So you never saw the medium of the disc itself. But this whole thing was this, big, like 33 1/3 RPM, and it was about that thick. I'm guessing a lot of that was just the plastic cover that was used to protect it and hold it and move it around. And if I recall correctly, this massive thing, was 10 megabytes. It had 10 megabytes of storage on it, which was huge at the time. I could hardly imagine what anyone could possibly use that much space for. It wasn't too much later that you started to get hard drives that you could put in personal computers. Not too much later, but like 10 years later, maybe 8 or 10. You get these hard drives that were this big. And the first ones were like 10 megabytes. I think the first one we bought, we waited for the technology to evolve a little bit, but I think the first one we bought was 20. I think it was 20 megabytes, which was enough to store all the computer games that we wanted to play, and a word processing program and a spreadsheet and all of the data, all the documents that were done at that time, memory active memory as well as storage memory were still quite expensive back then. So nothing was profligate. And then at one point we bought, because it was available, a 40 megabyte, and just we started laughing about what could one possibly do with 40 megabytes of memory. Now we can laugh about that now because, with graphics and everything, any kind of program ends up taking more than that. If it's not at least 100 megabytes, it hardly even shows up on your disk addresser. Let's see, it's 1:45. The shields are done. The shields are touched up. They look, they look okay. They came out pretty well. And I just need to wash these beards. So I guess I should just get on with that. I've got 3 colors of brown wash. One's kind of reddish, one's kind of blackish, and one's just kind of light brown. I've got some 3 levels of gray wash. I'm not going to use the black. It's just way too dark. Let's start with this umber. Kind of a nice brownish color, and I can't mess these beards up all that much. To use this brush, I'm going to start by putting it on this light colored beard. I want little bits on my brush. I don't know how this is going to look, so it's easy to add more, but it's pretty hard to take it off. It's doing the job, but I don't know. I think I want to put gray on this one. Leave it in the brown tone. I can put a lot more on here, though. I wasn't sure at first, but yeah, I can put a lot more on, and that looks okay. That's coming out okay. I think that's all right. I'm going to actually set it down like this so that the wash kind of puddles up in the nooks and crannies. Which other one will I do brown? I'm going to put brown on this yellow. See how this looks. Yeah, that's a good combination also. And I'm going to just stop there. I'm going to try the smoky ink. This is also brownish, but it has some red in it. This is the one we use on our wood tiles, the dungeon tiles that are made out of wood. I'm going to use this on the pink. Kind of a reddish tone. I kind of like the way that looks. It's good. And then use it on this really light white ivory, I think. Let's see how this looks. Just a nice light brown. Yeah, that's an okay beard look. The other really light one I'm going to do in a gray color, I think. Since I'm doing this, put it on here too. Yeah, this is going well on these beards. Wonder if I should put a little bit on the yellow here. What do I got left? I've got like 5 of these left. I'm gonna do kind of gray on some of them. Put it on the red. I'm gonna actually use the brown on the red. I don't want to use the dark gray on it because it'll be too dark. Didn't work as well as I hoped it would. I'm gonna put a little bit of this on it. I'll come back to this one. Let's leave it for now. Yeah, those are all kind of brown tones. I'm gonna do the dark gray on a couple of these. Be careful with this. It can get really dark really fast. Yeah. It's not too bad. It's not bright orange anymore. So that's good. This gray one. You don't want these beards to become too dark, then you won't see them. The prototype has a really dark beard, and it's very hard to see it. To puddle it up better. There. Okay. See how it looks on the mustard. The timing on this isn't bad because I'm going to be taking a break soon, which will give me an opportunity to check in with Nicole, who is our artist. She is an artist by training, and ask the final decision is whether this band on the beard, like the little beard holder down here, needs to be metallic or the blue color of the shields. This one's really light. I'm tempted to. I'm going to try this. I can always make it darker. I've got this light gray wash. Sometimes it's so light you can't see it. But I painted that one ivory or really, really light white just to see how this would look. And it's just not looking right. It's with an application on the astronaut suit, it did moon dust pretty well, but this is just, it's not working. I'll have to use one of the other washes on that. We'll go back to this red one. And I'm going to use this brown, with kind of the reddish brown on it. It's better. Okay. Just going to look at them one more time. There's a bright spot right at the top there. That should not be bright. Better. How's this one look? Not too bad. No, it was okay. So do I want this to be like a brown tone or a gray tone? I've got a lot of brown tones. I want to do a gray tone on this one. The light gray didn't work, so the dark gray probably will. That's doing okay. It's keeping it really light, but it's also, highlighting the texture of the hair and the braiding and stuff in a way that's helpful. Yeah, this is coming out okay. So I'm going to take a break here pretty soon. Let this set. Take a break. Take one of these upstairs and ask the question about the beard band. Okay. And the beard band is either going to be dark metallic or it's going to be blue, like the shield. And that's the question I will be asking. And then I will come back after gotten an answer to that question and paint the beard bands, because the wash should be dry by then, which is a good time to do it. And that won't take very long. After that, I've got a little bit of work to do on the descent stage of the Apollo that has to do with molding some gold foil to the landing pads, the tops of the landing pads. And then I'll probably end early today. But I will talk about Dungeons and Dragons and Dice and Dungeons and a little bit of that too, between the Beard Band and the Apollo, and definitely before I finish for the day. Just as a reminder, I will be gone next week again, but I will be back a week from Monday and resuming work on the assembly of the spindly little legs on the Apollo landing module, which you'll see after break when I open up the box of parts over there. Okay. And show you those bits. But in the meantime, like I said, I'm going to take one of these guys upstairs and ask the question about the beard bands, and I'll be back in more or less half an hour. Okay. It wasn't coming back right away. Yeah, late as usual, because there's always something, and this particular something was that a phone call came in just as I was headed down the stairs to resume after the break. So there. The aesthetic decision with regard to the beard bands is that they are to be painted blue, but then washed like the pants so that it's not quite as bright as the shield. So it'll be a two-step process. One is to put little bits of blue paint on all of the beard bands, and then after they dry, to put some wash on them. So I'm going to try to, I've got this beard colors there. Someday I'll have to put those paints away. So I'll be painting the beard bands and then keeping them kind of in the order in which they're done, so that the ones that are dried are the ones that I'll wash first. So I'll get this little bitty brush back out again, get the blue paint, take my glasses off, get the head magnifiers back. So then these will be done after this two-step process of blue followed by dark gray wash. And there'll still be some time left in the stream, not a lot, but some. And I'm going to use that then to do some gold foil on the landing pads of the lunar module. Yeah, that. Oh, well, painting works better when there's paint. paint. Managed to fill all the wells with all the blue, with all the beard colors here today. This happens that it's kind of chilly down here. And so, as the stream goes on, it gets cold. And so it gets cold, my nose starts to drip. And you get postnasal drip. This one didn't go very well. And so I'm looking at it with my head magnifier. This is the pink one. Okay, unmagnified, but magnified, it does not look that great. I'm going to have to take just a tiny bit of time. Let's see if the stuff is still good. There's bits that need to be washed a little bit. Little bits of wash on the bright pink spots that shouldn't be bright pink. It's better. Yeah, I mean, there's always something, right, to slow things down. These beard bands are getting painted blue. And then they'll get a little bit of dark gray wash to tone the color down. We put that on fairly carefully so I don't get it all over the beards. Usually I don't have to be that careful with the wash, but in this case, yes, I do. Well, next week I will be away. Be no relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons next week. And then the week after I will return and continue. At that point, I'll be assembling the little spidery legs. They're very fragile, not very well formed, spindly legs of the descent stage of the limb. And you'll see some of that in a bit when I work on the gold foil when I'm done with this. To focus a little more, I almost got blue paint where I don't want it. In fact, I did a little bit, but it wasn't enough to show. So the blue bands they're kind of just providing a little coordination. It makes sense that they would be. They would make their beard bands the same color as their shield and their leather pants. Theme. Yeah, and then they show a little bit. Maker went through the trouble of actually, putting them on each of the the dwarves, so why not have them show? They definitely need to be washed with a dark gray wash because otherwise they're way too bright. You're just going to have to hear me sniffling. It's just the break portion of this stream is always like that. I forget to hydrate, which I have done by not bringing anything to drink down with me after break. And it gets chillier, and I start sniffling. Things to talk about. I mean, having concluded that Tom Terrific was not the greatest hero ever, and even calling into question whether or not Tom Terrific was a hero at all. That monologue. Okay, well, there they are. They're blue. Give them just a couple of seconds to set, and then I'll get the dark gray wash out. Actually, I was doing really pretty well. Okay, I talked about, look, how did I do that? I turned, I did it again. I put another finger in the blue paint that I had been using to do the beard bands in the palette, and I turned the palette to the dark gray wash because I think there's still some there that is still fine. And I just stuck my finger in it, and I'm glad I noticed that. Otherwise, I'd have blue spots all over all these models. Okay. So now I'm going back to the blue bands and putting this dark gray wash on it so that it tones down the color. In this case, okay, there's either too much or too little, right? It should be like take no time at all. It's taking a lot of time because it's either pooling up there. You definitely want them not that bright. So I have to kind of dab this on, it looks like. That'll work. So after I'm done unbrightening this blue with this dark gray wash, then I will sort of clean up my highly sophisticated cardboard here. Shop this 18-inch by 18-inch cardboard piece. So I mentioned that I finally decided that the nature of this is not how to be a master modeler, not how to be a master painter, but how to do stuff cheap. And pieces of cardboard are just an example of that. Very useful. They come in a box. They come as a box. And most people get boxes nowadays because they order stuff, online, and then it's delivered in boxes. So, if it's a large enough box, you just cut the side of it out. And if there's no writing on it, then I am capable of getting 4 work surfaces out of each one. One here, okay. And then after this is really messed up, I just turn it around and use the other side. Just rotate it 180 degrees. And then I've got another clean cardboard surface. And after that's messed up, I flip it over and I've got 2 more. So, I needed to do was cut the side of the box out, and I got clean work surfaces. And it's a decent color. It shows good contrast with what's working on it. And it absorbs oopses like that. And after a while, it just becomes really messy, and then I know it's time to change it. These got half done with these guys. So they're coming along, okay? When I'm done with these, I'll do my promo for Dungeons and Dragons, Dyson Dungeons and Dragons show. It'll be a good time to do that. Show some dungeon tiles, sort of thing. And then after that, I'm going to do a little bit of work on the Apollo. And then, depending on the time, I'll be either ending on time or early, depending on how the Apollo gold foil thing goes along. I need to clean up a little bit. It's kind of a mess here. Is Mighty Manfred a wonder dog or something to speculate about? What does it mean to be a wonder dog? One would think that would mean that the dog had like some special powers. Maybe could fly or something, but all Mighty Manfred ever did was just kind of doze off. But sometimes, if I remember correctly, every once in a while, he was a talking dog. Oh, maybe that's what made him a wonder dog, is that he was able to talk. Okay. Well, that didn't last very long, did it? Wondering about Mighty Manfred being a wonder dog, because obviously he was, because he talked. I don't know if he was mighty. That's probably just his name, though, Mighty Manfred, as opposed to an intentional descriptor of the Manfred being mighty. Like there was a restaurant we used to go to once called the Mighty Nice Grill. And it didn't really mean that it was mighty nice. That was just the name. Okay. Well, what I've managed to do here is pull out like more than a dozen bottles of paint, like 15 different bottles of paint, and all the washes that I've got except for two, creating quite a pile of stuff all over my cardboard. But there are 11 of those minifigs that are now done and ready to appear on our Dungeons and Dragons show. So this is where I got to talk. This is where I forget how to talk. Yeah, that's another feature of post-break painting with Dice and Dungeons, is that I can't talk much anymore. It just comes out blah. What I was attempting to say, and I'll find out now if I'm going to be successful in saying it or not, is that this is when I get to talk about our Dungeons and Dragons show. Because Dice and Dungeons is a group of family and friends, gets together and puts on a show which streams with a live chat on Twitch 3 Sundays a month. Check social media. I don't check social media because I don't ever look at social media. I have no social media accounts even. I can't even ignore my accounts because I have no accounts to ignore. But you do have accounts, and don't ignore them, but check them. And on this stream, oh yeah, like in the opening and closing, it has all the social media addresses. You can go to one or more of those and find out what the schedule is of our Dungeons and Dragons show. And if you can't catch it with the live chat, you can catch it at your leisure or leisure, depending on how you say that word, on YouTube. And you can even listen to it as a podcast, because there's some sort of dialogue and monologue or noise at least going on all the time on the show. So podcasts actually work. But I think YouTube works pretty well. So then you can just, like catch the episode when it's convenient for you. So do that, because our Dungeons and Dragons show is really amazing. We have a lot of fun producing it. And I have to say, and this is an honest thing, when I catch old episodes and watch them, where I think they're pretty good. They're pretty good. So do that. And you can become a follower, like some people have on this stream, or you can go on YouTube and become whatever it is that one becomes there, a sponsor, something. Like I said, I will revel in my ignorance of social media or online stuff. And you can go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons, patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and become a patron. And if you become a patron, then you get access to really cool stuff like our DM's notes, session notes, and our warm-up improvs, which are hilarious and sometimes stupid. I'll just say they're usually stupid, sometimes hilarious. That would be more accurate. And at certain levels, you can even appear in the credits of the show, which is a pretty cool thing. So yeah, patreon.com/dice. Patreon.com/diceanddungeons. Go there. Be a patron. And then, we'll be able to buy another piece of cardboard or something. Yeah, I'm not going to show you the dungeon tiles. I usually do that, but I won't this time because, I'll let you go a whole week without seeing them. And then when I get back a week from Monday, I'll show off our dungeon tiles because they're pretty cool things. So I have completed a set of these figures who are dressed in the colors of the Ulstein Grotfelds, who are not liking us on our D&D show. They are not liking us at all. And there are a lot of them, and they're wielding this weird baton-like weapon. And I am pretty certain that we will be meeting at least some of them, hopefully not all of them, but some of them, in some sort of altercation. in our Dungeons and Dragons show sometime in the future. It will be in the future because it can't happen before these were done. It will have to happen after they were done, and they're just finished now. So they can't appear until sometime later than now, which is the future. So I think they came out pretty well. They all have a different colored beard, but otherwise they're kind of uniform in terms of their armor and shield and all of that. So I'm done with them. Ta-da. I need to get them out of the way now. And, oh, yeah, there it is. I did. I came prepared. I came with a box. And I'm going to put them in the box so that they are not on the workbench where when I start doing something else, I could hurt them. This is not a highly sophisticated storage device. It's just a box, kind of like the box that gave rise to my cardboard here, that came with a delivery in it. And now it's housing 11 of these Ulstein, Grotfeld, baton-wielding guys who will appear in our Dungeons and Dragons show sometime in the future. As I move my camera around. If I move it like this, I can make everybody nauseous. Okay. Well, they're in a box, but I have no place to put the box because like every square, not every square inch, almost all of every flat surface around here is covered with something. In some ways, I guess that's efficient in that we're making use of our flat surfaces. In some ways, it's definitely not, in that there's no place to put them. Yeah. Carefully put them in a box so I don't break them, and then I bang the box so that they all go flying. That's the kind of excitement that you get on this stream. I am still looking for a flat surface. Okay, there's one there. I'll be off screen just a minute while I set these on that flat surface that I found. Successfully set on a flat surface. And now I don't need these brushes. I will put them aside so they're not in the way. And I don't need all of these paints that I have out for painting beards and things, but it'll take me a long time to put them away. So I'm just going to shove them out of the way and probably knock them over. But fortunately, they have these caps on them that are screwed on tight so that it won't spill. And I'm going to bring over the Apollo model because I still have an hour left. And I hope I don't use the whole hour doing this, but you just never know. Let's see. I'm going to need this disaster of a brush that I've been using. This brush that I've been using to put rubber cement on things. So it's all gummed up with rubber cement, gummy. And I get the rubber cement out. Why? Because I'm using rubber cement to adhere the gold foil to the model. And why am I using rubber cement? Well, because it sticks, which is a good thing, but also because it can peel off and be repositioned, which turned out to be a really good feature because I had to do that several times as I was putting the gold foil on. What I'm working on here is this bit here. This is completed and wrapped in gold foil. And it looks like this when it's upside down, which I think it is in the box. And eventually, it will end up looking like this with all these little spindly struts all around the outside of it. And these spindly struts have a fair amount of assembly to do, and it's really touchy, kind of delicate assembly because they're supposed to fold. They fold up underneath themselves so that they fit. See, like that? They fold in like that so that they fit inside the fairing in which the lem resided when it was blasted into space. And then they fold out so that they can land on the moon. And I have a picture somewhere of the real lunar module. I don't remember where I put it. It looks just really kind of shockingly crappy. The gold foil is it was mylar foil, gold colored mylar foil, maybe even actually really gold plated. I think it was wrapped around that and all of the struts. And so this model was designed just to have the body wrapped in gold, and these were gold painted. And they are all gold painted, but I decided to go an extra step and wrap at least the outside leg and the landing pads in the gold foil as well, which comes much closer to the look of the real lunar module. Okay, so that's the thing I'm working on. And here, I'll open the box now. Ta-da! There, it's open, and this is it. This is the thing that's all gold foil wrapped, and these are some of the little struts that are not gold foil wrapped. That it's upside down like this. These other struts are attached. Okay, so you can see that they're flimsy and I don't know, really delicate. So in order to make it look like the real lunar module, I've got some of this extra foil. I wrapped the exterior, the farthest out struts. These are on the outside that go on there like that, except it turns over to attach up here, and then attach there, and then this attaches there. So I was successful in wrapping those in the gold foil, so they look pretty decent actually. And then these are the landing pads, and they're wrapped in gold foil, just like the real thing. See that kind of really crinkly look? That's authentic. But they're not quite as nice as I would like them to be, because this bit here, right here, where the strut goes in, that I practiced on that. I did one just to test it. And when that's covered in gold foil, it really makes a big difference in the appearance. And so what I need are like little kind of, I'm going to cut out rectangles and then chop off the edges, just little bits of gold foil. And I'm going to put rubber cement on here and rubber cement on there and squish them down on there. And then after they're squished down on there, I'll reopen the hole where the strut goes in. That's what I'm hoping to do. I did this twice. Last time I did a stream, and I was able to get one on there, but it didn't hold, and it fell off and then got lost. I'm going to need little bits of things. I need like toothpicks and tweezers and a cutting instrument. And I had there it is. I actually have a piece of gold foil here that's already been cut out and like tossed aside. That is probably of a size, maybe just like about the right size to put on there and squish around. So that, I already have that, so I'm going to use it rather than cutting more. I am, though, just to make it a little, I cut off the corners just to make it not quite round. I'm not going to be able to make a circle out of it, but I think if I cut off the corners, it will actually make it easier to put on. There'll be less of it that needs to be squished down into it. Now, I'm done with minifigs and I'm back to the Apollo here. And if this goes well, it'll go quickly. If it doesn't go well, then it will not go quickly. It'll go poorly. Okay, so what I want is I'm using this brush. I made the mistake once. Take this off so I can see close up. I made a mistake in using, this big bottle brush. And look, I mean, it just oozes and drips. That's what rubber cement does. It oozes and drips everywhere. And it did. It oozed and dripped everywhere and made a huge mess that I wasn't really able to clean up very well when I was working on the descent stage. So I decided to sacrifice a not very good at all paintbrush, heavily used. I'm hoping I get enough on here so that it will stick. The other thing I found is that this is like any other contact cement, needs to be applied to both surfaces or else it doesn't hold. Of course, applying it to this surface means that there's no place to hold on to the surface, right? Which is why I have tweezers and toothpicks so that I can hold it down while I spread the stuff on it and pick it up. Okay, so there. I'll go over this like this. It's supposed to be centered over it, which it isn't. Yeah, now it's sticking. Great. Okay. And then I'm just going to use the flat surface here, push down on it, and then push it down around like that. That actually went okay. And it looks, you can just see how much better it looks than that, where it's just the gold painted plastic. And if it's sort of sticks, that's all that really is necessary, is that it sort of sticks. And then the opening needs to be reopened. This will no doubt cause a problem in that with the foil on it, the opening is now going to be smaller than it was. Okay. So I'm not sure if the pieces will fit very well. It's also not sticking very well, but as long as I don't pull on it, it should be okay. Anyway, there. Compare and contrast. You can see how this one looks better than that one. There's some of the gold foil has lost its goldness there. Okay, so there I've got that. I need to do that 3 more times. So I'm going to cut along here. 1, 3 of these, just about that size. This is the X-Acto knife. The thing about this is that I've got a box and it's been around long enough that almost all the blades are rusted from just sitting around in the basement for years. And this one was one of the few that wasn't rusted, which is why I'm using this. It's way bigger than what I need, but it's pretty sharp, which is important in terms of getting nice clean cuts on this stuff. It was good that there was all this excess foil because then I was able to wrap the struts And these took, you can see that took a fair amount of foil to do that. I don't know if it's necessary to cut the corners. Is it necessary to cut corners? They're just likely to stick up. So, I did it on the first one and it worked okay. So I'm going to cut them off here. Like I said, the corners, they might stick up and not settle down where they should be. So I'll cut these off. Put rubber cement on. Fortunately, this is a good thing, is that the gold foil on the real lem is just crinkled everywhere. In fact, it's even more crinkly than the crinkles that I'm getting in putting this together. If it wasn't crinkly, this would just be looking terrible. But all the irregularities and crinkles are authentic, an authentic replication of the crinkliness of the real lem, which is a very good thing because there's no way I'd be able to get this put on without it being very, very crinkly. It just is. Why? It's magic. It doesn't turn. Yeah, I get just kind of pushing it down and around the that little socket into which the strut is attached. It's being foily, push it in one place, it pops up in another. Oh, good. I got enough cement on this one, rubber cement, that it's actually kind of sticking, unlike the first one, which is kind of not sticking. Okay, well, don't mess with it more than one needs to. Puncture the hole in here. Right. Okay, I've got two that are not too bad. There's some places like here, you can see where the gold foil wrapped around itself and it's not gold anymore. We'll see how the rest of this goes. If it goes okay, I'm going to get another little piece of foil, just a small piece, rubber cement it and push it down on there so that it's gold instead of silver. So it doesn't show the flaw quite as much. Likely do that anyway. I am being annoyed by the presence of that silver spot. I shouldn't be bothered by this lumpiness because the real lem is just really lumpy. You look at these things and you say, oh, well, something landing on the moon should be highly precision, right? It should be precise all around, and then you look at it and it's wrapped in this gold-plated, gilded mylar. And it's just really badly done. It's crinkly and lumpy and sticking out all, I mean, literally just sticking out all over the place. But, it didn't, fortunately, and that's probably why, is it didn't matter, you know, being in an environment that has no atmosphere. It didn't have to be streamlined or anything really. It could just be it could just be all messy, and it was. For me, as a not very skilled model maker, is a tremendous advantage because I can create an authentic looking lunar module just mushing stuff down like this, and it looks the lumpier it is, the more authentic it looks. Just a huge, tremendous thing to match my skill level to the real thing. Because if it needed to all be smooth like the top of this is, if it all needed to be smooth like that, well, you can see clearly that wasn't the thing that was going to happen. Nope, that was a thing that was definitely not going to happen. But the real thing is just lumpy, frumpy. It's actually that's even a better word. It's frumpy. Okay, well the rubber cement isn't really holding this. Once I touch it, it keeps moving around. But again, that shouldn't matter unless one decided to like play around with it, which one shouldn't after the model is done. You shouldn't just be poking away at it. So anybody who views this model after it's completed, don't get out a toothpick and poke away at the metal foil around the landing strut because it may end up moving. That shouldn't be. Lesson for us all. But again, I don't know if cutting these corners off has made a difference or not, but it, it worked on 3 out of the 4. So, and now I've got little shiny specks all over the cardboard here, which will probably be of great assistance later on when I try to do something and I don't get them all cleaned off. And then they'll like, when I'm painting something, there'll be one that'll get underneath the paint and I won't be able to get rid of it. I'm sure there's a serious downside to those little bits of mess that I've made, but I won't discover that until it's too late. Something to look forward to is another oops moment on relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. No, sorry. Just it's a regular feature of post-break relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons is that I get chilled down here and start sniffling. It just always, always happens. pushing down the last bits of the last one before I repair that very obvious flaw. There's some, all of these have little flaws where the gold foil turned over as I was pushing it in, and it shows silver. But there's only one that's bad enough that I think I need to put a repair on it. The rest of these will just be what they are. But I'm glad I did this. It when the struts go into these, and I practiced that once before. Maybe I'll pull one out and just show you how it works. Try to do this without breaking something. So you have these gold foil wrapped struts that go in the outside, and then they go into these. They're like that. Okay. And you can just see the continuity of the gold wrap foil to the gold wrap foil, as opposed to just gold paint. It really, it looks much more like the real thing. It was every bit worth the effort to do that. Okay, this is the one that needs repair. Just going to put these back in the box so that the opportunity for despair is minimized. And I need just kind of almost like a crescent of gold foil to go over this right there. Be nice if I just had a piece of scrap laying about, but I don't. I'm just going to cut off a piece like this. This should be big enough to cover the offending area. Expect to be an excess of rubber cement on here because it's a really small thing and it needs to stick somehow, and it doesn't stick to itself really. So put a bunch on there, and then I'll put a bunch on here. It's a technical term for probably more than I need. It's a bunch. Rubber cement, I mean, it's a liquid. Spreading a liquid isn't a bunch. This is just, that was just really not an appropriate use of the word. It just wasn't. But having been said, it's not like a post on some social media thing that I don't know anything about that can be like deleted. I think you can. Sometimes I hear about they deleted that post. So I'm guessing that there's some way that once something is said online, well, it's never unsaid. That much I've heard is that someone would have taken a screenshot of it or copied it or done something so that you can't make it like it never happened. Like that's not possible, but I guess it's possible to, delete it on its original source so that if like you can disavow its existence or something. I don't know. I don't know how you can do that if people have already taken screenshots and copied it and forwarded it to everybody else. Okay, well, why is that not looking very good? Can't say that it doesn't look good. It's just shiny on shiny, and it's gold where it used to be silver. It's not falling off. So I'll declare that a success too. Let me cap this up before I spill rubber cement everywhere. which is a thing that could happen. Put this away so I don't cut myself, which is a thing that could happen. Move these toothpicks. Other than being pointy and not very sharp, nothing much would happen with those. Take these little silvery and gold specks, and now they're sticking to the cardboard. Let them stick to the cardboard. Okay. I'm going to wrap up early here today because there isn't much else I can do. I finished the Ulstein Grotfeld. I got these ready to go. So these are the remaining bits of the struts. And they're just going to be a real pain to put together because like this here is supposed to go into here like that. And it doesn't. They don't really fit, but they have to go in a way so that they still rotate, so that they still move. Okay, so that has to be done. And then this hooks onto this up here. That's not as hard. Anyway, there's a great opportunity because these are, as you can see, really thin, brittle plastic. There's a great opportunity to break one. And if it's broken and it loses its integrity, the ability of these things to fold up and unfold is going to be greatly reduced. This nozzle simply gets cemented in there. The only reason I haven't done that is because it'll get in the way of, because I'll bang into something. I actually probably could install this because this whole thing is going to have to be stored upside down like this anyway. That's the only flat surface, really. And then the legs will be flopping around out here. The legs are really fragile. I don't want to be storing this while it's supported on its legs. Even though it's supposed to be supported on its legs, it just increases the opportunity for something to break. So it'll almost certainly be stored upside down like this. If I were brave, am I brave? I'm going to put the foil back in here. I would cement. Every time I bump one of these, because they're fragile, if I bumped it a little too hard, is an opportunity to crack one. Now, I'm going to wait because sometimes this is a nice flat surface. If those are out, it can set on here, and I can always put this in later and break even more stuff. So yeah, this is the lem. I'm not going to touch it anymore. Wrapped nicely in gold foil. It looks pretty good. I've got the exterior struts and the landing pads wrapped in gold foil, which is a really nice touch, I have to say. After looking at the picture of the real lem, there's one in the Smithsonian. It was a leftover lem that was supposed to be used for like an orbital exercise, and it wasn't. I saw that these were wrapped in foil as well, and they look much better than just the gold painting. So this is what needs to be done, is that these need to be attached to this. These need to be hooked onto the top of that. And then these get attached to these prongs out here like this. And once all of those pieces are attached and not broken, the only thing that needs to be done is the ladder and the platform, the stepping out platform, need to be attached. And I'm going to need to be much more careful than I just have been, because I bumped into this like 3 or 4 times already. Fortunately, not very hard, but any significant bump and I could just crack one of these. And then the nozzle goes on, and then this will be done, and it'll be stored upside down with legs sticking up. This is the Walking on the Moon astronaut guy. This guy came out pretty well, I think. Looks pretty good as a minifig. And I used the gray wash to simulate the appearance of the moon dust on its legs and a little bit on its arms. So that's that. This is not a historically accurate minifig. The real moon suit had 6 attachments for ventilation and stuff on the front, and the camera was that's a camera was situated differently. The only thing that's really kind of authentic on this whole thing are the gloves. The gloves were dark gray and the fingertips were blue, and so I, attending to detail, painted the blue fingertips on it. This guy goes on a fake moon surface that comes with the model. Okay, I'm going to break something yet. I'm going to close this up and move it aside before I bang into the struts again and smash one. Not this anymore. Yeah, here's the moon base. Looks just like the real thing, doesn't it? Yep. So yeah, the lunar module sits there in this circular area, which is also totally inauthentic. I mean, the rocket blast, as it descended, did push the dust out of the way, but it's just a model. So this whole thing is going to be, I'm going to prime it with gray primer, I think. So it'll be mainly moon colored to begin with, and then use some lighter and darker grays to highlight all of these way too many scattered around craters. I'm going to spend some time on this, actually, doing some dry brushing and stuff to try to make it look better than it looks now. And that's the moon base. And then there's another one over there that's supposed to look like an ocean or whatever that is the base for this entire model stack. This needs some work. You can see the high quality injection molding, like right along the edge here. There's all sorts of flashing along the edge, very rough edge because poor quality injection molding. Okay, so there it is. I'm going to then say thanks to everybody who has watched this week. I will apologize yet again for being gone yet again, but I will. I'll be away next week. And then a week from Monday, I'll be back. And I'll just leave this here. I'll be building. I'll be like putting together the very, I am so nervous about that. Trying to snap together the very tight-fitting, poorly formed, very fragile struts for the remainder of the landing struts. These things, all of these things here, for the descent stage of the lunar module. I don't know what to say other than I hope that those things will go together, that I take deep breaths and work very carefully and very slowly and don't break anything. And if I succeed in not breaking anything, then it will be a happy thing. Then I'll have the lunar module ready to go. What? I have to check something. I suddenly had a concern. No, it's okay. I'm not going to touch it. If I reach in there, I'm going to bump something and break it. And then over here, just so you know that I'm not anywhere close to being done, I've got the components of the command module. And the command module is very poorly injection molded again. You can see like flashing all over the place, and little bits sticking out. Um, yeah, this is kind of an interesting thing. This is the control panel, one of them, and is extremely shallow. I don't know if you can even see it on the camera. Extremely shallow, sort of embossing, very, very, very small raised lines for the instrument panel. And the same thing here. Okay, this one has got a lot of detail. It's got like little dials and all sorts of things on it. And the instructions say just paint it blue and stick it together. But you can see inside the command module because the door opens and there's these little windows as well. And when you look through that, you'll be looking directly at this, okay? And I want it to look kind of like the real instrument panel. And I'm saying kind of like because, oh, where did it go? Yeah, kind of like because this is what it really looks like. Okay. And so my ability to recreate that on these, let's just say I don't have a lot of confidence that I'll be able to make it look like this. But what I will be able to do is put little bits of green and red and white and dark gray paint on it in appropriate locations. Hopefully, kind of matching the raised lines on this don't match this, but I'll do my best to try to make it look sort of like this. So when you look inside the command module, you'll say, "Oh, that's an instrument panel." There's another view of it, as opposed to, "Oh, it's just a piece of blue painted plastic." The other thing is that the seats, these are the seats where the astronauts sort of lay down, is the instructions say paint those blue, but when you look inside the real command module, they're like canvas on a frame. I guess when you're weightless, it doesn't much matter. When you're going through 4Gs, when you're taking off, I think that'd be uncomfortable. But those are painted an off-white color, not blue, so I'll be doing those to look a little bit more authentic. And then the inside of the hatch, this detail is not molded into the hatch on the model. But there are some raised surfaces that I'll be painting metallic and then try to make a brown frame around the porthole window. You can see the hatch down there. So, yeah, that's what's coming up in the future. But a week from Monday, I'm going to be trying to assemble those little spidery struts without breaking anything. And if I'm successful in doing that, then the entire lunar module will be done. And I'll probably then take some time to show off all of the stuff that's completed. All of this will be completed except for the command module, which is still in pieces. That being done, set these aside. And now I'm going to go back to the flat surface that I discovered earlier. Why am I doing that? I'll show you. I'm doing that so that the army of these little guys is visible on camera right at the end here. This needle file goes in the box. Oh, there it is. Now, if you put things away, this is a thing that you don't learn by watching, but if you put things away where they belong and you look for them later, you can find them. Yeah. If you just sort of set them down kind of randomly out of the way, and then you want them later, as you have seen on this stream, it's quite likely that you can't find them. So, yeah, That was a how-to lesson. Whereas parents used to say to kids, and maybe they still do, I don't know if they still say this, it's a stupid thing, is do as I tell you, not as I do. Don't do as I do as I tell you. You know, something similar to that. Well, actually, this show is kind of like that in that I'm not demonstrating how to do things. Sometimes I'm very successful at demonstrating how not to do things, but then I can tell you, don't do it that way. Don't do what I did because it's not going to work or it leads to a mess or something. And then I can say, maybe you should do it a different way. And sometimes I'm actually able to find that other way. I'm going to sign off a little bit early, but I'm done with whatever I can get done today. These guys are finished. I got the gold foil put on the landing pads, so that's ready for assembly. I showed off the parts of the Apollo that will be coming up a week. Probably, yeah, I don't know how the assembly is going to go. It'll either be finished on Monday, a week from Monday when I get back, or it'll be awful and it'll take the rest of the week. But right now I'm hoping that a week from Monday it'll just be like one stream that I'll get the lunar module done and I'll be able to show off the entire Apollo thing other than the command module. And then begin working on the command module. And then that is just going to be a bunch of filing and sanding again as I try to get those parts usable. I did some test fitting earlier, and it didn't go, it wasn't horrible. Most of the parts sort of fit together. There were a couple of parts that sort of didn't fit together, so they're just going to be messing around with it. There's no doubt about that. Thanks all. If you have become a follower, thanks so much. If you become a sponsor, I don't know, on YouTube, when you become a follower on YouTube, there's a word for that. And if you go to patreon.com/dice and dungeons, you can become a patron. And you can tell it's getting near the end of the stream because I'm becoming ever more incoherent, and I better just stop now while I'm still using words. Thank you all. I will see you a week from Monday. Take care. Bye.